Thank you so much, Vinny. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, there are a lot of these fairy tale ideas about how life's going to be, but I never fit into any of them. I was born into a family where my father struggled with drug and alcohol addiction. When he was home, most of the time, he was abusive. My mom was a victim of domestic violence, scared to ever speak her mind. When I remember my father, I remember beer cans scattered on the floor. I remember him beating my mom. I remember the strangers coming and going. From a young age, I remember stepping up to take care of my brother and sister. Why? Because no one else was. I was consumed by fear and loneliness, but I buried my emotions deep. I didn't have the luxury of ever showing them. For some people, family evokes happiness and reassurance, but I didn't have that. I had a broken family right from the beginning. Even as I kept almost every emotion hidden, from a young age, I knew I didn't have the stereotypical characteristics of a boy. I didn't like to play football. Instead, I loved playing Barbies with my sister. I absolutely did not appreciate being dirty. And I remember learning from America's next top model that you better work it from H to T. And it might have been that last moment when I knew I was really different. Still, I knew not to talk about it. I knew to keep all the compliments I had for the boys inside my head. You see, aside from the abuse and the addiction, there's one thing that I remember about my father. When I was 8, he raged. If my son turns out to be gay, I would not only beat the gay out of him, but throw him out of my house. But over time, it built up, all the secrets. And finally, in the summer of 2013, living in a small town, my biggest secret spilled out. As the words, "I think I'm gay," came out of my mouth, I remember my mother's reaction. "No, you are not," she yelled. She never told my dad. We both knew what would happen. But instead, she held my secret over me, using it like it was blackmail every time I screwed up. Then one day, in the middle of a fight, she used my identity to insult my father. "You're such an awful father. Your son turned out gay." My dad asked me if it was true. I hesitated, and that hesitation was all he needed. He yelled. He threw things. He punched the walls and slammed the doors. I don't know how I made it through that moment. You think growing up like that, school might be my refuge. But it wasn't. The bullying never stopped. In the hallways and even online. The number of death threats I got on Facebook every day tore me down. My self-esteem began to crash, and the thought of helplessness became clear. My parents thought it would be a good idea to talk to our pastor about what was going on. You see, my family was also very religious. My father was a deacon of the church, and my mom was a member of the choir. But they didn't send me to the pastor to support me. They thought they could change. They thought he could make me see how wrong it was to be gay. They were trying to change who I was through conversion therapy. I refused to talk to him, which might have been a fine act of resistance, but didn't help things at home. One night, the fights got to where they've never been before. I ran away. Later that night, I was in the back of the police car heading to the juvenile detention center. 30 days later, I was released only to find out that my parents wanted nothing to do with me. That's how I ended up in foster care. Being discharged to my first foster home, the amount of hopelessness I felt began to widen. I started cutting. I tried to end the pain altogether. I can't tell you how many hospitals I bounced from and how many foster homes and even a shelter I was placed in. I was 14, but I didn't feel like a child. The one thing I kept telling myself was, I can't control what's happening, but I can continue to fight. And then I got some good news. I got placed in a home where I could be me, where I could stop burying who I was, who I liked, and what I felt. With my 2 dads and 6 siblings, I finally started to love myself. My 2 dads, they showed me what a real marriage could be like. My siblings showed me the true meaning of family. They taught me how my life could be. Their constant support and encouragement, it gave me a life. It gave me a future. I may not have had a fairy tale start, but where I am right now is pretty close. Today, I know that being gay does not define who I am, but is a huge part of who I am proud to be. A strong and resilient individual who will continue to advocate for the lives of LGBTQ youth in care. The young people who so often feel like no one is on their side. My voice will only get louder. My determination will only get stronger. I'm not giving up until there's no fight left. And I'm so glad each and every one of you are here doing what you're doing, because we need as many people as we can fighting along our sides. Although we are not able to paint over their past or promise to undo their pain, we can help them see a brighter future, a different tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys.